She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. Proverbs 30:1-25. Imagine you have been traveling. Not a short trip, a long one, the kind that takes something out of you. The roads were not always smooth. The weather was not always kind. And somewhere along the way, you set down the idea of arriving anywhere at all and just kept moving, because moving was the only thing you knew how to do. And then tonight you see a light. A warm light, low in a window, the kind that means someone is home, someone is awake, someone is expecting you even though you did not announce yourself. The kind of light that makes you slow your step and then stop entirely, because you had forgotten what it felt like to be moving towards something rather than just moving. Come inside. The door is open. It has been open. It was open for you before you even appeared on the road, which is the way it always is with this house, the way it always has been. The one who keeps this house saw you coming from a long way off, set the fire, warmed the room, put the kettle on, made space at the table. Because you were always going to arrive, and the arrival was always going to be welcome. Come in. The night is outside. You can hear it still, the wind in the trees, the sound of the world going on without your management of it. But in here, the fire is warm and the light is low, and the chairs are soft, and there is nowhere you have to be and nothing you have to produce. Just rest. Tonight I want to take you through this house slowly, room by room, and in each room there is a woman waiting. Not to teach you a lesson or deliver a moral, just to sit with you for a while, to tell you something about her life that might land softly in yours, to be the kind of company that makes the night feel less long. 5 women, 5 rooms, one long unhurried evening. Their names are Miriam and Abigail, and Mary Magdalene and Lydia and Priscilla. You may know some of them well. You may know others only faintly, a name you have heard but a story you have never quite sat with. Tonight we sit with all of them, and the thread that runs through every room, the thing each one has in her hands as she waits for you is this, a gift. Something she learned in the hard place. Something she found in the wilderness or the palace or the garden or the riverbank or the long years of faithful work. Something that belongs to you tonight as much as it ever belonged to her, because the gifts of God's people do not expire. They travel across time. They arrive exactly when they are needed. They are needed tonight. So come in, sit down, let the door close behind you. The fire is warm, the night is long, the stories are ready. Let's begin in the first room. Before we go in, let's breathe together, just once slowly. Breathe in long and full, let the chest rise. Let the belly rise. Let the air go all the way down to the places that have been held all day. And breathe out, let the shoulders drop, let the jaw soften, let the hands open. Let the road fall away from you. You don't have to carry it inside. leave it at the door. One more breath in and out. Good, you're here now. Let's go in. The first room is full of light. Not the harsh, demanding light of a room where work is being done. The warm, dancing light of a room where someone has been celebrating. The candles are nearly burned down now, which tells you the celebration has been going on for a long time, which tells you the reason for celebrating was big enough to sustain hours of it. And in the corner of this room, resting now, her tambourine on her lap, her feet bare on the stone floor, her eyes soft with the particular contentment of someone who has danced until they had nothing left to dance with, is Miriam. She looks up when you come in and smiles. She has that quality that some older women have, not older in the sense of diminished, but older in the sense of accumulated, of having lived through enough that the trivial things have fallen away, and what remains is the essential. She looks at you and she sees you, not the managed version, not the version you wear for the world, the real one, and she is glad you are here. Sit down near her. Let me tell you about Miriam. She is the sister of Moses, but she was his sister long before he was Moses, long before the burning bush and the staff that became a serpent and the 10 plagues and the parting of the sea. He was his sister when he was just a baby, 3 months old, hidden in a basket of papyrus reeds coated with pitch and bitumen, set among the reeds at the edge of the Nile, while their mother Jochebed watched from a distance and prayed the prayer of a woman who has run out of options. You know the story, perhaps. Pharaoh had decreed that every Hebrew boy born should be thrown into the Nile. The decree was not negotiable. It was not the kind of thing you could argue your way around or appeal with a petition. It was power asserting itself over the powerless, which is one of the oldest and most brutal things in the world. And Jochebed, Moses' mother, could not throw her son into the river. So she did the extraordinary thing. She made him a small boat. She made the basket watertight. She put her son in it, and she put it in the water, and she let the river take it. And Miriam, young Miriam, the older sister, old enough to watch but not old enough to do anything about whatever came next, Miriam stood at a distance and watched. This is where Miriam's story begins, at a distance, watching, unable to control the outcome, holding her breath. How many of us have been in Miriam's place, watching something precious and vulnerable float away from us on waters we cannot control? A child making choices we cannot stop. A relationship moving in a direction we cannot redirect. A diagnosis being carried by currents of biology that answer to no human authority. A prayer sent out over waters we cannot see the other side of. We stand at the distance, we watch, we hold our breath. And Miriam watched. Pharaoh's daughter came down to the river to bathe. She saw the basket among the reeds. She sent her servant to get it. She opened it, and the baby was crying, and she felt compassion for him. And Miriam, quick thinking, brave beyond her years, acting on the instant, stepped out from the distance. She came close. She spoke to the princess of Egypt, the daughter of the man who had ordered her brother's death, and she said, "Shall I go and get you a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said, "Go." And Miriam went and got her own mother. And Jocheb nursed her son in the very palace of the man who wanted him dead, and she was paid to do it. I want you to sit with the audacity of that for a moment. Not audacity in the sense of arrogance or bravado, audacity in the deeper sense. The willingness to move in a moment when movement seemed impossible. The willingness to step out from the safety of the distance and enter the dangerous space between what is and what could be. The willingness to speak when speaking was risky and say something that could change everything. Miriam was a child when she did this. A girl, small and unimportant by every measure the world uses to determine importance. She had no power, no status, no leverage. She had only the moment, and the courage, or the desperation, or the love, or some combustible mixture of all three, to act in it. And she did. The basket floated. The baby lived. The mother nursed her own son in the palace of the king who had sentenced him to death. The story turned on the step of one girl who watched her breath from a safe distance and then chose to step out of it. This is who Miriam was from the beginning. Then the years passed. Moses grew up in the palace, in the strange dual life of a Hebrew raised as Egyptian, of a man who knew two worlds and fully belonged to neither. He fled after killing an Egyptian who was beating a Hebrew slave. He went to Midian. He encountered the burning bush. He came back. He stood before Pharaoh. The plagues came, 10 of them, each more terrible than the last, each a demonstration that the God of the Hebrews was not a local deity contained by geography or limited by the power of the empire. He was the God of everything, and the empire was going to find that out. And finally, after 430 years of slavery, after generations of people who had been born into chains and died in chains, and had never known what it was to walk on ground that belonged to them, finally, the night came. The Passover, the death of the firstborn. Pharaoh, broken, told Moses to take his people and go. And they went into the wilderness, toward the Red Sea. And behind them, because Pharaoh's grief had curdled quickly into rage, because the loss of his son had become the humiliation of his power, because a man like that cannot absorb a loss without turning it into a war, behind them came the army. The chariots, the horses, the full military force of the most powerful empire in the world. The sea was ahead, the army was behind. And between them, 2 million people, men and women and children and elderly and animals, and everything they had gathered in the night of their departure, stood at the edge of an impossible situation. There was nowhere to go. And then the sea opened. This is one of the moments in all of Scripture that defies imagination. A wall of water on the right, a wall of water on the left, and a path of dry ground between them, and 2 million people walking through. The sound of it. The sight of those walls of water, held back by a force no human eye could see. The knowledge that one step onto that dry ground was an act of faith unlike anything they had ever been asked to make. They crossed, and when they were on the other side, the Egyptians followed, and the sea closed, and they were free. In that moment, in the first moments of the first morning of the first day of freedom that this people had seen in 430 years, Miriam picked up her tambourine. She had brought it. Think about this. When the Hebrews were leaving Egypt in the middle of the night, in the rush and the chaos and the fear and the wonder of it, Miriam brought her tambourine. She packed it among the things she would carry into the wilderness, into the unknown, into whatever came after the impossible night. She brought it because some part of her, some deep, stubborn, knowing part of her, believed there would be something worth celebrating on the other side. She brought the instrument before she knew what she would play on it. And now on the shore of the sea, with the army of Pharaoh drowned and the horizon open and the people finally free, she lifted the tambourine. And she sang, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has hurled into the sea." And all the women followed her. They danced on the shore of the sea, with the salt wind in their hair and the bodies of their oppressors floating in the water behind them and the wilderness ahead of them. They danced. The women of Israel, who had known nothing but slavery, who had watched their sons thrown into the Nile, who had bent their backs under impossible labor for 4 centuries, they danced. Because something had ended. Because something had begun. Because the God who had heard their crying had come down, and the God who had come down had acted, and the action was undeniable. They danced. Miriam led them. Now I want to stay with something here, because Miriam's story does not end on the shore. And the part that comes after is important, not because it is pleasant, but because it is honest. Because the same scriptures that show us Miriam dancing on the shore also show us Miriam later, in the wilderness, in a moment that is much less glorious. She and her brother Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married. They said, "Has God spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also?" This is not a beautiful moment. This is a woman who had been faithful for her whole life, who had watched her brother from the reeds of the Nile, who had stepped into the impossible gap, who had led a nation in worship on the shore of the sea. And now, somewhere in the long, grinding years of the wilderness, something had gone sour. A grievance had formed, and resentment had found a home. She spoke out of a place that was not her best place, and God's response was immediate and severe. Miriam was struck with a skin disease, The text describes it as white as snow. She was put outside the camp for 7 days, and the whole nation waited. The whole nation waited for Miriam. This is remarkable and worth noting. 2 million people, moving through the wilderness toward the promised land, paused. For 7 days, while Miriam was outside the camp, because she was that important. Because the community could not move without her. Because who she was to them, the prophet, the leader, the woman with the tambourine, the voice that had taught them to sing, meant that her absence was felt by everyone. God restored her. The 7 days passed. She was brought back, and the nation moved again. I tell you this part of Miriam's story not to diminish her, but to complete her. Because the Miriam who made a mistake and faced the consequences and came back, that Miriam is as important as the Miriam who danced on the shore. Maybe more important for the purposes of tonight. Because most of us know what it is to have a shining moment and a failing moment in the same story. To have led something beautifully and then stumbled later. To have been the person who brought the tambourine and also the person who said something they shouldn't have. To have been faithful in the long haul and then had the long haul produce a bitterness or a resentment that surprised even you with its presence. Miriam knew this, and she was still Miriam, still the prophet, still the woman who danced, still the one who carried the tambourine through the wilderness on the faith that there would be something to celebrate on the other side. She never stopped being that. And here is the gift she gives you from this first room, this warm room with the burned down candles and the tambourine on her lap. The song is worth carrying, even when you don't know what you'll sing it for. Even when the wilderness is long and the destination is not visible. Even when you have made the kind of mistake that makes you wonder if you are still who you thought you were. Even then, carry the tambourine. Keep it in your hands. Keep the expectation of celebration alive in you, like a coal kept carefully in the ash. Because the sea does open. It has opened before. It will open again. Maybe not in the shape you expect or on the timeline you need. But the God who parted the waters for Miriam is the same God who is in this room with you tonight. He parts things. He makes ways where there are no ways. He brings people out of impossible situations and onto the shore of the impossible morning. And on that morning, you will want your tambourine. Keep it close. The gift of Miriam is this. Joy is not the absence of the wilderness. Joy is what you carry through it. You can carry it tonight. Even in the dark, even in the long wait, even in the tired, worn, been at this for a long time place you may be in right now. The tambourine is in your hands. The morning is coming. Rest now in the first room, with the candles burning low and Miriam's song still in the air. Let it be in you as you breathe. In and out. The song is in you. Rest. The fire in Miriam's room is very low now. The candles have burned to their ends. The light is the softest kind, just the glow of the embers, just the warmth without the flame. It is the perfect light for sleeping. But we are not sleeping yet. There is more of the house to see. More rooms, more women, more gifts. Let's move quietly through the corridor. The house is old. The floors are stone, worn smooth by generations of feet. The walls are thick, the kind of thickness that keeps the cold out and the warmth in. The kind that makes the sounds of the outside world feel very distant and unthreatening. The corridor is lit by a single lamp hung high on the wall, casting a warm amber circle on the ceiling. The next room is ahead. Before we go in, take a slow breath. In and out. Carry what Miriam gave you. The tambourine. The expectation of celebration even in the wilderness. Carry it into the next room. Come. The second room is quieter than the first. No tambourines here, no evidence of dancing. But there is something in this room that the first room didn't have, a quality of absolute clarity. The air feels different, cleaner somehow. Like the air after a storm has passed, and the sky has been washed, and everything is distinct and precise, and exactly itself. And the woman sitting at the table in this room is exactly herself. Her name is Abigail. She is beautiful, the scriptures say so, which is not a detail they include without meaning. But the beauty that comes off her in this room is not primarily the beauty of feature or form. It is the beauty of a person who knows who she is, who knows what she believes, who knows what she will do when the moment comes, and who has been prepared by the long, ordinary life before the moment to do it. She is calm in the way that people are calm when they have already made the decision. The hard part, the choosing, is done. What remains is the carrying out. Sit down near her. Let me tell you Abigail's story. She was the wife of a man named Nabal. The scriptures describe Nabal with the same directness they use for Abigail's beauty, but in the opposite direction. He was harsh and badly behaved. His name in Hebrew means something like fool. And he lived up to it with a consistency that must have been, for Abigail, one of the sustained trials of her life. She had married well by the world's standards. Nabal was wealthy. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, which in that world was substantial prosperity. But wealth and wisdom do not always come in the same person, and Nabal had the first without any trace of the second. And Abigail had both, which put her in the complicated position of being the most capable person in a household that did not officially belong to her. Now, into this domestic situation came a crisis. David was in the wilderness at this time, the future king, not yet crowned, running from Saul who wanted him dead, living in the wild with his band of men. They had been in the area around Carmel where Nabal's flocks were grazing, and they had protected those flocks. Not because they were paid to, nobody asked them to. They simply did it as a matter of honor and neighborliness. When Nabal's shepherds were out in the fields, David's men were nearby, and they made sure the shepherds were safe and the flocks were undisturbed. It was sheep shearing time, a time of celebration and feasting in that culture, a time of abundance and generosity. David sent 10 young men to Nabal with a greeting and a reasonable request. Would Nabal share something from his feast with the men who had protected his livelihood? It was not an unreasonable request. In the culture of that time and place, it was actually the expected thing. Hospitality was not optional. Protection deserved acknowledgement. Nabal had done well this year in part because David's men had kept his flock safe. Nabal's response was breathtaking in its rudeness. Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants who are breaking away from their masters these days. Shall I take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers, and give it to men who come from I do not know where? He not only refused, he insulted. He dismissed David as a runaway servant, as a nobody, as someone not worth the bread he would have spent on the gesture. He sent David's men back with nothing and with contempt. And David, who was going to be king, David, who had already been anointed by Samuel, David, who had killed Goliath and led armies, and was not a man you insulted without consequence. David heard the report of his men, and his response was immediate and furious. He told his men to strap on their swords. He was going to kill every male in Nabal's household, not just Nabal, every man. The fury was total. The response was completely disproportionate. And it was coming, with 400 armed men behind it, toward a household that had done nothing except have the misfortune of belonging to a fool. This is the moment when Abigail's servant came to her. He told her everything. What Nabal had done. What David's men had been good to them, never bothering them, protecting them in the wilderness. And what was coming now as a result of Nabal's foolishness. And Abigail acted without telling her husband, because telling him would have produced nothing useful. Because Nabal was a man you could not reason with, she moved. She gathered 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, 200 cakes of figs. She loaded it all on donkeys. She told her servants to go ahead of her. And she rode out to meet David. She met him coming down the mountain with his 400 armed men. And she dismounted from the donkey and fell before David on her face and bowed to the ground. And she spoke. What she said in the next moments is one of the most remarkable speeches in all of Scripture. Not remarkable in the grand, oratorical sense, remarkable in the way that truly wise speech is remarkable. Exactly the right thing, in exactly the right order, at exactly the right moment, delivered with exactly the right spirit. She took the blame, not for what she had done nothing wrong, but she took the blame in the sense of positioning herself as the responsible party, as the one standing between the foolishness of her household and the man who was rightly angered by it. She absorbed the energy of the situation. She did not defend Nabal. She did not pretend he wasn't what he was. She said clearly and plainly, "Please do not pay attention to this worthless man Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him." She named the reality without flinching. And then she made her appeal to what she knew about David, not to his mercy primarily, but to his future. She knew who David was going to be. She had heard enough, understood enough, to know that this man coming down the mountain with murder in his heart was a man who was going to be king. And she said to him, "When the Lord has done to my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you prince over Israel, and this will happen," she was saying, "This is certain. You do not want this on your record. You do not want this among the things that are counted against you. When you become king, you will not want to have avenged yourself with your own hand." She was not flattering him. She was not manipulating him. She was telling him the truth about himself, the best version of himself, the future version, and asking him to be that person right now instead of the furious present version. And David heard it. He stopped. He said, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me. And blessed be your judgment. And blessed be you who have kept me this day from blood guilt, and from avenging myself by my own hand." She had saved him from himself. She had saved her household from his justified anger. And she had done it with nothing but the clarity of her own understanding, and the courage to ride out and speak it into the face of 400 armed men. Abigail went home and found Nabal drunk at a feast, heart merry, oblivious to how close to death he had just been. She told him nothing until morning, and in the morning when he was sober, she told him everything. And his heart died within him, and he became like a stone. 10 days later he died. And David, when he heard, sent for Abigail and asked her to be his wife. Now, there are layers to Abigail's story that we could spend hours in. The complexity of her marriage to Nabal, the questions about her agency and her choices in a world where women had very little of either. The theological questions about what God was doing in all of it. But what I want to sit with tonight, what I want to leave with you from this quiet, clear-aired second room, is the particular quality of wisdom that Abigail displayed in her moment. She did not have time to think it through for weeks. She had hours, perhaps. And in those hours, she had to decide, do I stay inside the relative safety of my household and hope the crisis resolves itself? Or do I act? She acted. Not recklessly, she acted wisely. She brought the right things, She used the right words. She read the situation correctly. She knew what mattered, and she addressed what mattered, and she left out everything that didn't. This is the gift of wisdom. Not intelligence, wisdom. Intelligence is the ability to understand information. Wisdom is the ability to know what to do with it. Wisdom is the knowledge of what matters in a moment. Wisdom is the capacity to act from your best self when your circumstances are pulling you toward your worst. Abigail had this, and it came not from her circumstances, which were difficult, but from something in her that her circumstances had not been able to destroy. The gift she gives you from this room is the reminder that wisdom is already in you. Not perfectly, not always, not on every occasion, but in the moments when it matters most, in the moments when you have to ride out to meet the 400 armed men of your life, when you have to say the true and necessary thing into a situation that does not want to hear it, when you have to act from your best self in the middle of your worst circumstances. The wisdom is there. It was put there by the same God who gave it to Abigail. It is yours. You can draw on it. You have drawn on it before, in moments you may not have given yourself credit for. The moment you chose the kind word when the cruel one was right there, easy and available. The moment you saw the situation clearly when everyone else was panicking. The moment you acted from love when fear was the more obvious choice. The moment you got on the donkey and rode toward the hard thing instead of staying inside where it was safer. Those were wisdom moments. You have had them. You will have more. And tonight, in the tired and the dark, the wisdom does not need to be active. It can rest. It will be there in the morning when you need it. It does not deplete in the night. It does not go anywhere. Abigail rests in this room, clear-eyed and calm, having done the hard thing and come out the other side of it. You can rest too. The wisdom is in you. It will be there when it's needed. Rest. The corridor again. The stone floor. The single lamp. Abigail's room is behind you. The clear air, the table, the particular stillness of a decision already made. Carry it with you. The wisdom that was in her is in you. The next room is different from the others. It is darker for one thing. Not dangerously dark, warmly dark. The kind of dark that feels like an embrace rather than an absence. The kind of dark that a person chooses when they have been in too much light for too long. The kind of dark that holds things carefully. Take a breath before we go in. In, out. Come. The third room is the darkest of the 5. But it is not cold. That is the first thing you notice, the warmth of it, despite the dark. There is a small lamp in the corner, just enough to see by, and the walls are close, and the ceiling is low, And the whole room has the quality of a place that has held many people in many hard moments and been faithful in the holding. And the woman in this room is sitting in the corner near the small lamp, and she looks up at you when you come in, and there is something in her face that you recognize immediately, even if you cannot name what you recognize. She has been through something. Not in the past tense, finished, I have processed and healed way. In the way where the something is part of her now, where it has been integrated rather than resolved, where you can see in the lines of her face and the quality of her stillness that she has traveled a long road and the road has changed her, and the change was, ultimately, a grace. Her name is Mary Magdalene. And I want to be careful with how I tell her story, because she has been misrepresented more than almost any other woman in Scripture. Centuries of misreading, of conflating her story with other women's stories, of making her into a symbol of a particular kind of sin that the text never actually assigns to her. So let me tell you what the text actually says. The text says that Jesus cast out 7 demons from Mary Magdalene. It does not tell us what the 7 demons were, or what they did to her, or how long she had lived with them. It simply says they were there, and Jesus cast them out. After that, after the casting out, after whatever that was, whatever it cost, whatever it freed her from, Mary Magdalene followed Jesus. She was one of a group of women who traveled with him and supported his ministry from their own means. She was there. She was present, consistently, faithfully, through the whole of his ministry. And she was there at the cross, when the disciples, most of them, had scattered in fear, when the men who had followed him for 3 years could not hold their place in the face of the crucifixion. Mary Magdalene was there, standing at the foot of the cross, watching, refusing to look away from what was being done to the one she loved. Staying when staying was almost unbearable. And she was there at the tomb. Early in the morning, while it was still dark, the Gospel of John is specific about this. It was still dark. Mary Magdalene came to the tomb. She came to be near him, even in death. She came because she did not know what else to do, and she could not stay away. She came because she was the kind of person who stays. And the stone was rolled away, and the tomb was empty. She ran. She went and told Peter and the other disciple. They came, they looked, they saw the burial cloths lying there, and they went home. They processed what they had seen in the privacy of their own confusion. But Mary did not go home. She stood outside the tomb weeping. And as she wept, she bent down and looked into the tomb. And she saw 2 angels in white sitting where the body had been. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" And she said, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." Then she turned around and saw Jesus standing there. But she did not know it was Jesus. He said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking?" She, supposing him to be the gardener, said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." One word, her name. And she turned and said to him in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. She recognized him not by sight. She had looked at him and not recognized him. She recognized him by his voice, by her name in his mouth, spoken in the particular way that he alone spoke it, by the sound of being known. Mary, I want to stay in that moment for a long time tonight, because I think it may be one of the most important moments in all of Scripture for anyone who has ever felt lost, for anyone who has ever stood outside an empty place where something they loved used to be, weeping, not knowing where to go or what to do. For anyone who has ever looked directly at something without recognizing it, because the grief was too thick, or the fear too total, or the darkness too complete. She looked at Jesus and did not see Jesus. And he called her name. And then she saw. The seeing came through the hearing. The recognition came through the being known. She could not find her way to him through her own searching. And she was searching, she was looking, she was absolutely committed to finding him. She would not leave even when the others left. But she could not find him. He found her. He said her name. And she saw. This is the gift of being found. And I call it a gift because being found is different from finding. Finding is something you do. Being found is something that is done to you. And in the doing, it reveals something about the one who is doing the finding. It reveals that they were looking for you, that they knew where you were, that they came to the place where you were weeping and they spoke your name. You are being found tonight. Not because you have searched well enough, or believed hard enough, or been faithful enough. Not as a reward for the effort, but because He is the kind of God who comes to where the grieving person is standing outside the empty tomb in the dark and calls her name. He knows your name. He knows the specific, particular, unrepeatable sound of you, the exact frequency of your need, the precise shape of the empty place you are standing outside of. He knows what you have lost. He knows what you are looking for. He knows what it has cost you to keep showing up, to keep coming back to the empty place, to keep weeping, to keep looking into the dark for what is not there. He knows, and He speaks your name into the dark, not in a thunderclap, not in a vision, in the quiet, direct, personal way that He spoke Mary's name. One word, her name, in the voice that she knew, that she recognized even when she could not see Him. In the voice that is in this room tonight. In the warmth of this dark space that has held so many people in so many hard moments. He is here. He knows your name. Let yourself be found. You do not have to have it together to be found. Mary did not have it together. She was weeping. She was confused. She had mistaken the risen Lord for a gardener. She was not at her best, not by any measure. And he found her exactly there. He finds people exactly where they are. He finds you exactly where you are. The darkness of this room is not the darkness of absence. It is the darkness of intimacy, the darkness of a place where the light is low enough that you can be honest, where the walls are close enough that you feel held, where the small lamp in the corner is enough to see by, because what needs to be seen tonight is not the whole world. Just this, just the one who speaks your name. Mary left the tomb running. She ran to tell the others, "I have seen the Lord." She was the first human being to see the risen Christ. The woman who had 7 demons cast out of her, who had followed him faithfully, who had stayed at the cross and the tomb when others couldn't. She was the first. The one who had been most lost was the first to be found. The one who had been through the darkest thing was given the first light of the resurrection morning. This is not an accident. This is the character of God. He gives the first light to the ones who have been the longest in the dark. If you have been in the dark a long time, if this is a long night in the context of a long season, in the context of a long, difficult chapter of your life, then know this: the light is coming, and it may come to you first, because the ones who have been the longest in the dark are the ones who are standing closest to the place where the stone rolls away. He knows your name. He is speaking it now. In the quiet of this room, in the dark and the warmth, in the space between your breaths, Mary, or whatever your name is, he speaks it. Rest in the being found. You are not lost. You have been found. Rest. The corridor again. The stone floor. The single lamp. Abigail's room is behind you. The clear air, the table, the particular stillness of a decision already made. Carry it with you. The wisdom that was in her is in you. The next room is different from the others. It is darker for one thing. Not dangerously dark, warmly dark. The kind of dark that feels like an embrace rather than an absence. The kind of dark that a person chooses when they have been in too much light for too long. The kind of dark that holds things carefully. Take a breath before we go in. In, out. Come. The 4th room is the most open of all the rooms in this house. The ceiling is higher here. The windows, there are actual windows in this room. The others had none. Let in the light of the moon, which has risen enough now to be a real presence in the room, casting long, soft rectangles of pale light on the stone floor. And the woman who waits in this room is not sitting. She is standing near the window, looking out. not anxiously, not the way you look out a window when you are waiting for someone who is late and you are worried. The way you look out a window when you are simply glad to be in the warm and to know that the outside world, though dark, is held by the same hands that hold this room. She turns when you come in, and her face is completely open. No calculation in it. No wariness. Just welcome. Pure, unhurried. You are exactly who I was hoping for. Welcome. Her name is Lydia. She is perhaps the most ordinary of the women in this house, in the sense that her story does not involve a dramatic miracle or a great battle or an encounter with the risen Lord at an empty tomb. Her story is simpler than that. It is a morning by a river, a gathering of women, a man named Paul who came and sat down and spoke, and a heart that opened. Let me tell you, Lydia was a businesswoman. She dealt in purple cloth, which sounds like a small detail, but it is actually a significant one. Purple dye in the ancient world was extraordinarily expensive to produce. It came from shellfish found in the Mediterranean, and the process of making the dye was labor-intensive and costly. Purple cloth was the cloth of royalty, of wealth, of power. To deal in it meant you had access to the wealthy, to the influential, to the people who ran things. Lydia was not a marginal figure. She was a woman of standing, of means, of connections. She ran a household. The text implies it was substantial. She was from Thyatira, a city known for its textile trade, and she had brought her business to Philippi, which was a major city, a Roman colony, a place where trade and power intersected. She was, by any measure, a capable and successful person. And she was a worshiper of God, not yet a follower of Jesus. The story of how that happens is the story itself. But she was already oriented toward God. She was already reaching, already seeking, already the kind of person who went to the place of prayer by the river on the Sabbath because it mattered to her, because something in her life was pointed in that direction even before she knew the full shape of what she was pointing toward. This is worth noting. God does not always work on blank slates. He often works on people who are already moving, already seeking, already reaching, already oriented in His direction even before the full encounter comes. Lydia was not empty. She was full of something, full of a genuine seeking, a genuine worship, a genuine openness. And that fullness was exactly what was needed for the encounter to land the way it did. Paul and Silas came to Philippi. It was the Sabbath. They went outside the city gate to the river, where they expected to find a place of prayer. And they sat down and spoke to the women who had gathered there. To the women who had gathered there. Not to the city leaders. Not to the men of standing. To the women by the river on a Sabbath morning, gathered for prayer. These were the first people Paul encountered in Philippi. These were the first people in what would become one of the most beloved of all the early churches. The Church of Philippi, the church to whom Paul would later write from prison, the letter full of joy and the peace that passes understanding, the letter that says, I have learned in whatever state I am to be content. That church began with a group of women by a river, and Lydia was among them. The text says, the Lord opened her heart to pay attention to what was said by Paul. The Lord opened her heart. She did not open it herself, or rather, her opening of it was enabled by his opening. There is a cooperation here, a mystery here that is worth sitting with. She was already there. She was already listening. She was already seeking. And in that already open posture, the Lord opened something deeper, the specific interior door that allowed what Paul was saying to go all the way in, to land in the place where it would take root. This is how faith often comes, not in spite of the seeking but through it, not as a reward for the faithfulness, but as the flowering of it. Lydia had been tending a garden, so to speak, without knowing exactly what she was growing. And on a Sabbath morning by a river in Philippi, the seed that she had been prepared for arrived. She was baptized, she and her household. And then she did something that is entirely characteristic of who she was. She urged Paul and Silas to come and stay at her house. She did not ask. She urged. She pressed the invitation. Come and stay with me. If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come to my house and stay. This is the open door. This is Lydia's gift. Not just the physical hospitality, though that was real, and it mattered because Paul and his companions needed somewhere to stay, and she provided it. Not just the practical generosity, though that was real too, and it grounded the first church in Philippi in the reality of a home, of a woman's household, of the domestic and the ordinary, and the physical space where faith is lived. The open door is the posture, the orientation, the readiness to receive, the willingness to say, what is coming, come in. What is knocking, I will answer. What is seeking a place to rest, I will make room. This is a spiritual gift as much as a practical one. The open door is the posture of a person who has stopped trying to control what enters their life and has started trusting the God who sends things to send the right things. It is the posture of someone who has learned that the stranger at the door is often the messenger, that the unexpected arrival is often the gift, that the thing you did not plan for is sometimes the most important thing that has ever happened in your house. Lydia had this posture. The Lord opened her heart and she opened her door, and in the opening of both, the church in Philippi was born. The church that Paul would call his joy and crown. The church he would miss and love and worry over and pray for, and write to from prison with more warmth than almost any other community. The church that would support him financially when no other church did. The church that would be his example of everything he was hoping for when he talked about what communities of faith could be. It all began with Lydia's open door. What doors in your life are you keeping closed that could be opened? Not necessarily literal doors, though perhaps those too, but interior doors. The door of the heart that has been shut against a particular kind of experience, a particular kind of grace, a particular kind of person or story or encounter. The door that says, I have been disappointed before and I am not opening this again. The door that says, I am too tired to let anything new in right now. The door that says, I have decided what is true and I am not revisiting it. Lydia's gift is the invitation to open those doors. Not recklessly, not without discernment. Abigail is in the room next door with her wisdom, and we can borrow from her when we need to. But with the fundamental openness of a person who is oriented toward God, who believes that what he sends is worth receiving, who trusts enough to say, come in. Tonight, in the dark, in the quiet, in the rest that is beginning to settle over you, open the door of your heart a little more to whatever God has been trying to send, to whatever has been knocking quietly without forcing its way in, because it is the kind of thing that only enters when invited. Let it in. The room is big enough. Lydia's room is always big enough. The windows are open. The moon is in them. The ceiling is high. There is space here for what needs to come. Let it in and rest in the open room, the open heart, the gift of the door that is always ready to receive what God sends. Rest, the corridor again, the stone floor, the single lamp. Abigail's room is behind you, the clear air, the table, the particular stillness of a decision already made. Carry it with you. The wisdom that was in her is in you. The next room is different from the others. It is darker for one thing. Not dangerously dark, warmly dark. The kind of dark that feels like an embrace rather than an absence. The kind of dark that a person chooses when they have been in too much light for too long. The kind of dark that holds things carefully. Take a breath before we go in. In and out. Come. Priscilla's room is the last room, and it is the most like a home. Not a showroom. Not a place designed to impress. The kind of room that has been lived in, really lived in, over years and years of faithful, ordinary living. There's a workbench along one wall, tools hung neatly above it. Leather and thread nearby. The smell of the work itself, the particular smell of a tent maker's workshop, which Priscilla and her husband Aquila maintained wherever they went, which was many places. She is a tent maker. Or rather, she is half of a tent-making partnership, she and Aquila, whose names appear almost always together in the New Testament, who are one of the most quietly remarkable married couples in Scripture. And she is a teacher, a theologian, a woman of such understanding and such ability to explain the faith that even the eloquent and learned Apollos, a man described in the Acts of the apostles as mighty in the Scriptures, came to her, and Aquila to be instructed more accurately in the way of God. She is also a person who has had to leave everything more than once. She and Aquila were expelled from Rome under Claudius's decree that all Jews must leave. They went to Corinth. Paul came to Corinth and found them, and because they were the same trade, tent makers, he stayed with them and they worked together. They went to Ephesus. They stayed in Ephesus. They went back to Rome when the decree was lifted. A church met in their house in Rome. A church met in their house in Ephesus. Whatever city they were in, the house became the church. The workshop became the community. The table became the altar. This is the long work. This is what Priscilla represents. Not the dramatic moment, though her life had its dramatic moments. The willingness to keep working, to keep building, to keep making the home and the table and the community wherever God sent them. The willingness to teach Apollos gently and take him aside privately rather than correct him publicly. The willingness to risk their lives for Paul. He says so himself in Romans, that they risked their necks for him. The willingness to start over in a new city, set up the workshop again, open the house again, build the community again. Again, and again, and again. There is something deeply grounding about Priscilla's story for anyone who is tired of starting over. For anyone who has built something and watched it have to be rebuilt. For anyone who has found community and then lost it to a move or a change or a circumstance beyond their control and has had to begin again in a new place with new people without the history that makes community feel like home. Priscilla knew this. She knew the particular grief of uprooting. The expulsion from Rome was not her choice. It was an imperial decree, as arbitrary and as devastating as such things always are. She did not deserve to be expelled. She had done nothing wrong. And she and Aquila packed what they could carry and left the city that had been their home and started again in Corinth. And what did she do in Corinth? She made tents. She opened her home. She welcomed Paul. She taught Apollos. She built a community. She did what she always did in whatever place she found herself. This is the gift of the long work, the faithfulness that does not require the circumstances to be favorable, the showing up that does not wait for the situation to be stable, the building that continues even when you are not sure how long the current city is going to last before the next expulsion or the next move or the Next thing, Priscilla built in the temporary, with the faith that what was being built was not really temporary at all, that the community, the love, the truth. Taught in a private conversation to a man named Apollos who would go on to teach hundreds more, that these things were not subject to the same impermanence that the circumstances were. The tents came down. The community endured. The workshop moved. The teaching traveled. The house changed. The church continued. This is what the long work produces. Not monuments. Monuments are subject to circumstance. Not structures that depend on permanence. Permanence is not always given to us. The long work produces people. It produces depth in the individual and connection between individuals and the passing on of something true from one person to the next, which is how the things that matter most move through time. Priscilla is evidence of this. She and Aquila are evidence of this. The Church of Rome that Paul greets in Romans greet Priscilla and Aquila, my fellow workers in Christ Jesus, who risked their necks for my life, too. Whom not only I give thanks, but all the churches of the Gentiles give thanks. That church had been built by the long work, by the coming and going and coming back, by the tents made and the tables set and the doors opened and Apollos instructed and Paul hosted and the community gathered and gathered and gathered. The long work. Maybe you are in the middle of the long work right now. Maybe this is not a dramatic season in your life. Maybe this is the season that will not have a memorable moment attached to it. The season that, looking back, will be identified simply as the years when you kept going. When you got up and did the faithful thing, and went to sleep and got up again and did the faithful thing. When you made the tents and opened the house and taught the Apollos and did not know what would come of any of it, whether it would last, whether it was making a difference. It is making a difference. The tents Priscilla made sheltered people. The house she opened shaped a church. The teaching she gave Apollos traveled far beyond Apollos, through him, through everyone he taught, through the words he wrote and the communities he built. None of it is lost. Not a single act of the long faithful work is lost. And yours is not lost either. Not the small kindness. Not the prayer no one knows you prayed. Not the showing up. Not the faithfulness in the ordinary Tuesday. Not the getting up again after the expulsion and making tents in the new city. None of it. Every act of the long work is received. Every moment of the faithful ordinary is known. Every tent-making season, every open door, every quiet teaching, every time you chose the unglamorous faithful thing over the impressive-looking shortcut, it is all there. All counted. All being woven into something larger than you can see from inside the making of it. Priscilla could not see it from the inside of it either. She just kept making tents and opening her house. And that was enough. Your enough is enough. The gift of the long work is the peace of knowing that faithfulness is its own completion, that you do not have to see the whole picture to know, that your part of it is real and good and necessary, that the tent making matters even when you cannot see the tent being used, that the open house matters even when the guests have gone home, that the teaching matters even when Apollos has left for Corinth. It matters. You matter. The long work matters. Rest in that. Priscilla's hands are still now, the mending in her lap, the tools on the bench, the quiet of a room that has held faithful work for years and is. Holding rest now. Holding you. The long work is done for today. Tomorrow it begins again. But tomorrow is not tonight. Tonight is only rest. Rest in the room of the long work. Rest in the gift of the faithful ordinary. Rest. The house is quiet now. All 5 rooms are occupied. Miriam with her tambourine and her song. Abigail with her clarity and her courage. Mary Magdalene with the resurrection morning still in her face. Lydia with her wide-open windows and her wide-open heart. Priscilla with her workbench and her faithful hands at rest. 5 women, 5 different centuries, 5 different worlds, 5 different stories. And yet this house holds them all, because the things that are most true about being human, the fear, the grief, the longing, the love, the faithfulness, the beginning again, do not expire with the century. They travel. They arrive exactly when they are needed. They have arrived here tonight. In this room. In this dark. And you have been given 5 gifts this evening. The first gift, Miriam's gift, is the song. The expectation of celebration even in the wilderness. The tambourine carried through the desert in faith that there will be something to play it for on the other side. The understanding that joy is not the absence of the hard thing, but what you carry through it. You can carry this tonight, even if the wilderness is long, even if the other side is not yet visible, even if the celebration feels very far away. The tambourine is in your hands. Hold it gently. Let the possibility of morning music be a warmth in your chest as you move towards sleep. The second gift, Abigail's gift, is the wisdom. The deep in you knowing that surfaces when the moment requires it. The capacity to act from your best self, even in the circumstances that would pull you toward your worst. The clarity that comes not from the situation being favorable, but from having practiced over time the art of seeing truly. You can rest in this tonight. The wisdom does not need to be active to be present. It is in you. It will be available when it is needed. You do not have to stay awake to maintain it. It keeps itself. The third gift, Mary's gift, is the being found. The knowledge that you are not searching for a God who is hiding, not reaching towards someone who is far away, not trying to force open a door that has been closed against you. You are already found. He knows your name. He came to where you were weeping, and he spoke it. You are known. You are near. You are held in the sight of the one whose sight is perfect. Rest in the being found tonight. You do not have to search. You do not have to earn your way into the presence. You are already in it. The name has already been spoken. The tomb is already empty. The morning has already come. Even here, even in the dark, the morning has already come. The fourth gift, Lydia's gift, is the open door. The posture of a heart that has stopped defending itself against what God might send and has started trusting the sender enough to say, "Come in." The willingness to receive the grace, the guest, the unexpected thing, the Sabbath morning encounter by the river. The openness that is not naive but is faithful. Can you open the door a little tonight? In the quiet, in the dark, in the private place where no one sees, can you open the door of your heart a little wider? To whatever has been knocking quietly without forcing its way in, because it is the kind of thing that only enters when invited. Let it in. The room is big enough. The fifth gift, Priscilla's gift, is the long work. The peace of knowing that the faithful ordinary is seen and counted and woven into something larger than you can see from inside the making of it. Rest in the long work tonight, not in the anxiety of whether it is enough. It is enough. Not in the uncertainty of whether it is visible. It is visible to the eyes that matter most. Just in the peace of a person who has done what needed to be done today and has laid it down for the night and knows that tomorrow the hands will be ready again. These are your 5 gifts. You came into this house tonight with empty hands, or with hands so full of what you were carrying that there was no room for anything new. And now quietly, without your fully realizing it, room has been made. The things that were heavy have been set down. The hands are a little more open. The chest is a little lighter. This is what stories do when they are the right stories at the right time. They do not lecture the weight out of you. They do not argue you into peace. They sit beside you in the dark and they tell you something true about the God who is in them. And the truth does its own work, quietly, the way rain does its work in the soil, going down, going deep, finding the dry places and soaking into them without making any noise about it. The rain has been falling all evening. You have been receiving it. And now it is time for the deepest part of the night. Not because the stories are over. The stories are never over. But because there is a kind of receiving that can only happen in sleep, in the deep unconscious rest where the mind stops its managing and the spirit is free to process what it has been given. The 5 gifts need to settle. They need to go all the way down, below thought, below intention into the roots. Let them settle. Let the night take you deep enough that the settling can happen. 5 women are resting in this house. Soon you will be resting too. And God, the God of Miriam and Abigail and Mary and Lydia and Priscilla, the God who parted the sea and gave wisdom and spoke names and opened hearts and counted 10 stitches, that God is awake, watching over this house, watching over every room, watching over you. You are in good hands, the best hands. Rest. Let's pray together now, slowly, without rushing, like the prayer of someone who has sat with 5 remarkable women all evening and is now, finally, fully ready to rest. Lord, you are the God who kept a baby safe in a basket of reeds and turned the resourcefulness of a desperate mother and the quick thinking of a young girl into the deliverance of a people. You are the God who put wisdom in a woman who had no power to change her circumstances, but had the depth of character to act from her best self in the worst moment. You are the God who came back for Mary, who came to the empty place where she was weeping, who called her name, who let her be the first to carry the news of the resurrection morning. You are the God who opened Lydia's heart by the river, who took the seeking she was already doing and met it with the fullness of the truth she had been preparing for. You are the God who counted every stitch of every tent Priscilla ever made, who knew the name of every person who sat at her table, who holds the whole long faithful work of a lifetime in hands large enough to hold all of it. You are the God of all 5 rooms. You are the God of this room. You are here tonight, in this dark, in this quiet, in this tired body that has come to the end of a long journey and found a light in the window and come inside and been fed and warmed and given gifts beyond what was expected. We receive the gifts. We receive Miriam's song, the expectation of joy on the other side of the wilderness. Let it be a warmth in us as we sleep. Let it be there in the morning when we wake, this stubborn, beautiful expectation that the God who parts seas is still parting things, still making ways, still bringing people to the other side of what seemed impossible. We receive Abigail's wisdom, the deep knowing that is in us, that our circumstances have not destroyed, that will be available when it is needed. Let us rest in it tonight rather than striving with it. Let it be the quiet confidence underneath the sleep. We receive Mary's being found, the absolute, irrevocable, he spoke my name certainty that we are known and near and held. Let it be the ground we sleep on. Let it be what we wake up knowing, even before we remember we know it. We receive Lydia's open door, the posture of the heart that is willing to receive what you send. Let the door stay open tonight. Let whatever you have been trying to bring in find its way in during the hours of rest, when the managing and the defending have gone quiet. Let it come in and let it stay. We receive Priscilla's long work, the peace of knowing that the faithful ordinary is seen and counted and woven into something larger than we can see from inside the making of it. Let us sleep in that peace tonight. Let the anxiety about whether the work is enough be set down at the door of this house. It was enough. It is enough. You are enough. And now protect this night. Guard the sleep that is coming with the same faithfulness with which you guarded the basket and the reeds, and the woman in the palace, and the grieving one at the tomb, and the seeker by the river, and the tent maker in the new city. The same faithfulness, the same attentiveness, the same near, steady, unchanging care. Let the mind slow. Let the body release. Let the breath deepen. Let the tight places soften. Let the worry set down the weight it has been carrying, just for these hours, just for the night. You are holding what we cannot hold. You are tending what we cannot tend. You are awake in the night so that we do not have to be. We rest in your wakefulness. We sleep in your watching. We are held in your hands. Let morning come when morning comes. Let it find us rested. Let it find us carrying the 5 gifts, lightly, openly, the way you carry things when you have slept well and your hands are free. Until then, just this: the night, the quiet, the house at rest, the God who watches over it. Amen and amen. The house is very quiet now. All 5 rooms are dark. The candles in Miriam's room have gone out completely, just a thin thread of smoke where the flame was. Abigail's table is still and clear. Mary's small lamp has burned down to a warm amber coal. Lydia's windows hold the deep blue of the night sky, the moon having moved past them into the part of the sky you cannot see from here. Priscilla's workbench is silent, the tools at rest, the work of the day fully done. 5 women sleeping, and the house itself is breathing, the old stone walls, the thick floors, the high beams, all of it settling into the deep rest of structures that have been standing a long time and know how to hold the night. This is the deepest part of the evening now. Not the beginning of the night, the middle of it, the heart of it, the part that the body knows instinctively as the time to be most deeply under, most fully gone from the waking world, most completely in the restorative dark. You are in the heart of the night. You are in the heart of the house. And the heart of both is held by the same God. Think about your breathing for a moment, not to control it, not to change it, just to notice it. The way it has slowed since the beginning of this evening. The way the inhale has become deeper, the exhale longer, the pause between them wider. The body has been preparing for sleep all this time. All the stories and the gifts and the prayers have been the preparation. And the preparation is complete. The body is ready. The spirit is ready. The night is ready. Let yourself go. Not with effort. Going to sleep with effort is like trying to catch water in your fist. You have to open the hand. You have to stop the catching. You have to let the water be water and the sleep be sleep, and the night be what the night is designed to be. Open your hand. Let the night in. Let the sleep come. It is already at the threshold. You can feel it, that particular weight behind the eyes, that loosening of the thoughts, that beginning of the images that are not quite thoughts and not quite dreams. The threshold is very close. You are almost at it. Approach it gently. Don't stop at the edge. Don't catch yourself beginning to drift and pull yourself back. Let the drift happen. Let the crossing be as natural as the breath, in, and then out, and then deeper in, and then the pause that becomes the sleep. Miriam is sleeping, the tambourine on the floor beside her bed, still ready for the morning. Abigail is sleeping, the clarity of her face undimmed even in sleep, the decision made and settled and at peace. Mary Magdalene is sleeping with the sunrise in her, the name still warm in her chest, the first news of the resurrection morning still something she is. The keeper of. Lydia is sleeping with the door of the house still open, because some people leave the door open even in sleep, because their hospitality extends through the night, because the heart that opens does not fully close. Priscilla is sleeping beside her husband, the long work laid down for the night, the tents made and the house opened, and the faithful partnership, resting in the dark. And you are almost there. The sleep is very close now. You can feel it the way you can feel the temperature change when you step from a warm room into the night air. A shift, a change in the quality of the darkness, a softening of the world's edges. The thoughts are not quite thoughts anymore. The images are beginning. The threshold is very near. Go toward it. Don't stop at the edge. Go through. God is on the other side, just as He is on this side. He will be there when you cross over into sleep. He will be there in the deep. He will be there when the morning comes and you open your eyes and the world is light again, and the new day is beginning, and the new mercies are waiting. He is always there. He has always been there. He will always be there. This is not going to change. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not in any season of any year of any difficulty you will ever walk through. He will be there, near and steady and faithful and good, and holding the story from the beginning to the end, and every ordinary night in between. He is there. You are held. You are loved. You are not alone. Not for a single breath of this night. Not for a single moment of your life. When the night feels heavy, God is near and steady. You do not carry it alone. Sleep now. Sleep deeply and well. Let the morning find you rested. Good night. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are His. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are his. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are his. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are his. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are his. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are his. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are his. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. He is near. He is steady. He is yours, and you are his. That is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Sleep now. The house is safe. The night is held. Come in and sit down. The night is quiet now, and this space is just for you. You made it through another day. Whatever it held, the weight of it, the worry of it, the wondering of it, you carried it. And now it's time to set it down. Right here. Right now. You don't have to carry it a moment longer. Let's breathe together first. Breathe in slowly, through your nose. Let your chest and your belly both rise. Hold it gently for just a moment. And breathe out long and soft. Let your shoulders fall. Let your jaw unclench. Let your hands open. Again. Breathe in, slow and full. And breathe out, release. One more time. Breathe in and feel the quiet of this moment. And breathe out and let yourself arrive here. Good. You're here now. And this is a safe place. Before we begin tonight's story, let's pray together. Not a long, complicated prayer, just a quiet, honest one. Lord, this is your child, and tonight they are tired. The day was long, the thoughts are many, and the heart is carrying more than it wants to. You see all of it. Every anxiety, every unnamed fear, every worry that keeps the eyes open when the body wants to rest. Meet us here tonight as we settle into your word and into the stories of the women you loved and led and never once abandoned. Remind us of what is always, always true. You are near. You are steady. And this night belongs to you. Let sleep come gently. Let peace come deeply. And let the morning find us rested in your care. Amen. Now then, settle yourself in. Pull the covers a little closer. The room can be dark. Close your eyes when you're ready. I want to tell you a story tonight. A long, gentle story. It moves through fields and rivers, through palace courtyards and quiet hillside paths, through nights of weeping and mornings of mercy. It is the story of women who knew what it was to be afraid, to be lost, to be desperate, and who discovered, every single one of them, that God had not looked away, not even for a moment. Come with me. And there is more to sit with in Miriam's story, more that the wilderness years contain, more that the long middle of her life offers to us tonight. Because the shore of the sea was not the end of Miriam's journey. It was barely the beginning of it. The celebration happened. The tambourines rang out. The song rose into the desert air. And then the people turned from the sea toward the wilderness, and the wilderness was not brief. 40 years. 40 years of wilderness. And Miriam walked all of it. Through the heat and the thirst and the complaints of the people who had seen the sea part and still managed within weeks to be longing for Egypt. She walked through the miraculous and the mundane, through the manna that appeared every morning, and the quail that came in the evenings, and the rock that gave water when Moses struck it, through the golden calf and the breaking of the tablets and the slow, sometimes heartbreaking process of trying to form a community of liberated slaves into a people capable of living in freedom, which turns out to be enormously more complicated than the liberation itself. She walked through all of it. And here is what I want you to notice. The tambourine traveled too. Not just as a physical object, though perhaps it did, tucked into whatever Miriam carried through the wilderness, but as a spirit, as a commitment, as a posture toward the future. She had declared on the shore of the sea that God is highly exalted, that the horse and rider are hurled into the sea, that the story has turned. And she carried that declaration into the wilderness with her. She was the keeper of the song, not just the singer of it on the shore, but the keeper of it through the decades of the not yet. This is what the wilderness does to a song if you let it. It deepens it. It strips away the celebratory surface and gets to the bone of it. A song sung on the shore of the sea, when the miracle is fresh and the enemy is drowned and the horizon is open, is beautiful. But the same song, carried through 40 years of wilderness, is something more. It is testimony. It is evidence. It is a woman who has seen what she has seen and has not unseen it, regardless of what the wilderness has tried to convince her. This is what the wilderness cannot take. The wilderness can take your comfort. It can take your certainty about the route and the timeline and the shape of the destination. It can take your energy and your optimism and your patience with the complaining people around you and sometimes with yourself. It can take the ease of faith, that early days freshness where belief costs nothing because everything is new and the miracles are still warm. The wilderness can take all of that, but it cannot take the shore. It cannot take what was true on the shore. It cannot take the song if you are willing to carry it. Miriam carried it. And when she sang on the ordinary days, not just the spectacular ones, in the mornings when the manna came again, faithfully, just as it had the morning before, in the evenings when the cloud moved and the people moved with it, in the ordinary weeks of the wilderness when nothing miraculous happened and the destination still felt impossibly far. She was the keeper of the song in those days. This is what you are invited to be, not the one who only sings when the sea parts, the one who keeps the song alive in the ordinary days, who carries the tambourine through the long middle, who says on the Tuesday, on the difficult week, on the season when faith feels more like stubbornness than inspiration, I have seen what I have seen. I know what I know. The God who did that thing on that shore is still the God I follow into this wilderness. This is the deeper gift of Miriam. Not just the dance on the shore, the carrying through the desert. And there is one more thing I want to say about Miriam before we leave her room, because it has to do with the specific kind of courage that her whole story from beginning to end demonstrates. Miriam's courage was always the courage of the moment. Not the prepared, planned, I have rehearsed this courage. The kind that is required before you know it is going to be required. When she stepped out from her hiding place by the reeds to speak to Pharaoh's daughter, she had not planned it. She was watching, waiting, probably terrified, and then the moment came and she acted. When she led the women in the song on the shore, she picked up the tambourine in the moment of liberation, not in a rehearsal room beforehand. Even her mistake, the speaking against Moses, was an impulse, a moment of something that had been building and then came out. Miriam lived in the moment, and the God who met her was always there in the moment, not just in the planned, prepared moments, in the sudden ones, the ones you step into before you knew you were going to step. He will be there in your moments too, the ones that have not yet come, the ones that are waiting for you on the other side of this night. The moment when something will be required of you that you do not yet know will be required. The moment when the choice is there before you have had time to think about it. The moment when the step is needed and the only question is whether you will take it. He will be there. He was in the reeds with Miriam. He was on the shore with Miriam. He was in the wilderness with Miriam. He is in this room with you. And he will be in the moment when the moment comes. Rest in that. And there is a quality to Abigail's courage that I want to stay with a little longer, because I think we tend to admire it from a distance without really understanding what it cost. She was afraid. I want to say this clearly because it is important. Abigail was afraid. She did not ride out to meet 400 armed men in the calm confidence of someone who had nothing to lose. She had everything to lose. Her household, her servants, whatever measure of safety she had managed to build within the confines of a difficult marriage. And she was going to risk all of it on the strength of her own conviction that what she was doing was right. Fear and courage are not opposites. This is one of the things that Abigail's story teaches most clearly. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to act in the right direction despite the fear. It is fear that has been given something larger to stand next to, so that the fear does not disappear, but it does not dominate either. You can be afraid and still get on the donkey. You can be trembling and still choose the right words. Abigail got on the donkey. And this is important for those of us who believe that the fear means we are not ready, that the trembling means we should wait until we are. Steadier, that the anxiety means the moment has not yet come. Sometimes the moment is here, and the trembling comes with it, and the going is required anyway. There is also something I want to say about the way Abigail spoke, the actual content of her words to David, because it reveals something about how wisdom actually works in practice. She did not try to tell David he was wrong to be angry. He wasn't wrong. Nabal had been genuinely offensive, genuinely insulting, genuinely ungrateful in a way that deserved a response. Abigail did not minimize this. She did not defend Nabal. She did not ask David to simply let it go without acknowledgement. She named the offense. Folly is with him, she said. She acknowledged the legitimacy of his anger. Wisdom does not require you to pretend that the wrong thing is not wrong. It does not require you to make the insult acceptable or the injustice tolerable. It asks you to acknowledge what is true, including the hard truths, and then to ask, given what is true, what is the wisest response? David's wisest response was not 400 armed men and a massacre of innocents. And Abigail helped him see this by putting the truest thing in front of him, not his right to be angry, but his future. Who he was going to be. What kind of king? What kind of man? She appealed to his best self. This is what wisdom does in relationships. It does not shame the other person or attack their worst self. It holds up their best self and asks them to be it. It says, I know who you are at your deepest. I know the person God is making you into. Be that person now, in this moment, even though this moment is making it very difficult. This requires knowing the person well enough to know who their best self is. It requires paying attention. It requires the kind of attentiveness that Abigail had been practicing, probably for years, reading rooms and people and situations with the careful eye of someone who knew that survival required it. But here is the grace in this. Her wisdom was not just strategic. It was not just survival skill. The way she spoke about God, the way she wove the reality of God's purposes into her appeal, this was not manipulation. This was a woman who genuinely believed what she was saying, who genuinely knew that David was called to be king, who genuinely wanted to spare him from the blood that would haunt him if he proceeded. She was trying to save him, not from the army, not from physical danger, from himself, from the version of himself that rage produces, from the decision that would follow him into the future he was heading toward. And she succeeded. He stopped. He heard her. And he recognized in the hearing that God had sent her, that the interception was divine, that the wisdom that had come out of nowhere, from a woman he had never met, riding down the mountain to meet his army with bread and wine and figs, was not coincidental. God sends the right people at the right moments. He has done it in your life too. The friend who called at exactly the wrong time, which turned out to be exactly the right time. The person who said the thing you needed to hear in a way you were actually able to hear it. The unexpected conversation that stopped a bad decision or redirected a course, or simply reminded you of who you were on a day when you had forgotten. These are the Abigails that God sends. And sometimes you are the Abigail. Sometimes you are the one he sends with the bread and the right words to someone who is heading down the mountain with 400 armed men and needs to be stopped. Not always in dramatic situations, often in very ordinary ones. The text you send at exactly the right moment. The truth you tell gently at exactly the right time. The showing up that intercepts something that would have otherwise gone badly. This is the wisdom working in community. It is not just for your own life. It is available to the people around you through you, when you are paying attention and willing to get on the donkey. The wisdom that saved David traveled on the back of a donkey. The extraordinary often arrives in ordinary transport. Rest in the wisdom tonight. Let it be in you, quietly active even in sleep, preparing for the moments that are coming in your own story and in the stories of the people around. You who will need someday the Abigail you are capable of being. I want to stay a little longer in Mary's room, in the dark with the small lamp, because I think the darkness of this room holds something that the other rooms cannot hold, a particular honesty that the warmth and light of Miriam's room and the clarity of Abigail's room make possible to glimpse, but not to fully enter. There are things that are only visible in the dark, not metaphorically, literally. There are things about the night sky that are only visible when the light pollution is gone. There are things about the depth of the ocean that only become apparent at the pressures found far below the surface. There are things about a person's character that only emerge when the comfortable daylight conditions have been stripped away, and what remains is the essential self. Mary Magdalene was forged in the dark. We do not know exactly what the 7 demons were. The text does not tell us, and we should resist the urge to speculate in ways that project our own worst fears onto her story. But we know that demons, in the language of the Gospels, represent something that had taken up residence in her, something that was not originally hers, something that had moved in and would not leave by ordinary means. And we know that Jesus cast them out. What that encounter was like, we can only imagine. But whatever it was, it left Mary Magdalene free in a way she had not been before. And the freedom she walked into was not the freedom of someone who has never known the dark. It was the freedom of someone who has been in the dark and come out the other side, which is a different and, in some ways, a deeper freedom. She knew what the darkness was. She also knew what it was not. It was not permanent. It was not the final word. It was not stronger than the one who had cast it out. And this knowing, this bone-deep, lived-in, I have been through this knowing, is what made Mary's presence at the cross possible. Because what the cross was is darkness. Complete, catastrophic, the worst thing that could happen, darkness. The one she loved executed. The one who had set her free, ending in the most public and humiliating way that the empire had devised for ending people. The one who had been her rabbi, her teacher, her Lord dead. And Mary was there. She did not look away. She did not flee. She stood. I think she could stand it, could remain present to it, because she had already been in the dark. Not the same dark. Not the dark of crucifixion, but the dark of something inhabiting you that you cannot get free from. The dark of whatever those 7 demons were. The dark that is interior and inescapable. She had been in that, and she had come through it. And so when the exterior darkness came, when the sky went dark at noon, and the earth shook and the temple curtain tore, she was still, standing. She had learned in the deepest way that darkness does not last forever, because hers had not. And so she stayed. And because she stayed, because she was there at the cross, and there at the tomb, and there at the first light of the resurrection morning, she was the first person to carry the good news. Not the disciples who had been there for the transfiguration. Not Peter who had walked on water. Mary, the one who had been through the dark. The one who had stayed. The ones who stay receive the first news. This is worth saying again, because I think it is one of the most important things in her story. The ones who stay, who remain present to the dark thing, who do not look away, who do not flee when the situation becomes unbearable. Those are the ones who see what comes after. You may be a person who has stayed through something. You may be, right now, in the middle of staying through something. Remaining present to something difficult, a grief, a situation, a relationship, a season that would be easier to leave than to stay in. And the staying may feel, right now, like it is costing you more than it is giving you. It may feel like the disciples running was the smarter choice. It was not. The staying is the thing. The presence is the thing. The refusal to look away from what is true, even when what is true is dark. That is the thing that positions you to see what comes after the dark. Mary saw it first, because she stayed. And then there is the specific moment of recognition. Jesus says her name, and she sees him. I want to linger in that moment because it contains something that I think the anxiety in us resists. The possibility of complete, sudden, unexpected reversal. The worst thing had happened. The one she loved was dead. The tomb was empty, which was not at that moment a cause for joy, but another layer of the nightmare, another incomprehensible loss added to an already incomprehensible loss. She was weeping at an empty tomb, which is perhaps the saddest image in all of Scripture. Weeping not just for the death, but for the absence of even the body, the last thing she had come to tend to. And then one word, her name, and everything reversed. Not gradually, not after a long process of rebuilding and recovery, and slowly coming to peace with what had happened. Suddenly, in the time it takes for a name to be spoken and recognized, and for the person who hears it to turn, she turned and said, Rabboni. The worst morning became the best morning in the space of a single spoken word. I am not promising you that your reversal will come in that sudden form, in that specific way. I am not telling you that the word will come tonight, and tomorrow everything will be different. I cannot promise the shape or the timing of your mourning, but I can tell you this: he speaks into the grief. He comes to where the weeping is. He does not wait for you to compose yourself or get your theology sorted or stop weeping before he draws near. He comes to the weeping place. He speaks into the weeping. He calls the name of the one who is weeping. And when he speaks, when the name lands in the right ear, spoken by the right voice, something turns. Be listening for your name, not just in the dramatic, audible, unmistakable way. In the quiet ways that the right word arrives, through something you read that is so specifically what you needed that coincidence feels insufficient to explain it, through the unexpected kindness of a person who did not know what you were carrying, through the dream that leaves something different in you when you wake, through the sudden shift in a morning, for no reason that the circumstances can account for, from the weight of grief to something lighter. He speaks names in many registers. Be listening. He has not forgotten yours. I want to spend a little more time with Lydia, because her story has layers that the surface reading doesn't fully reveal, layers that are particularly important for anyone who has ever wondered whether their ordinary, everyday faithfulness matters, whether the showing up counts, whether the seeking, the long, sometimes quiet, nobody is watching seeking, is going somewhere. Lydia was already at the river before Paul arrived. This is the detail I keep coming back to. She was already there. On the Sabbath, she gathered with other women at the place of prayer, not because it was spectacular or because a great teacher had announced he would be there, or because something remarkable was expected. She gathered because it was the Sabbath, and the river was the place, and the praying was the practice. She was faithful in the ordinary, and into the ordinary faithfulness, the extraordinary arrived. This is one of the most consistent patterns in Scripture and in the lives of people who have encountered God in real and lasting ways. The extraordinary tends to arrive in the middle of the ordinary, not in the moments when you have arranged everything to maximize the possibility of encounter, not at the conference or the event or the specially designed sacred experience. At the river, on the Sabbath, in the gathering that has been happening every week for years. This is encouraging and also, in a quiet way, unsettling. Encouraging because it means you do not have to create the conditions for God to move. You do not have to engineer the encounter. You just have to keep showing up to the ordinary things, the prayer, the gathering, the practice, the Sabbath, and trust that God moves in them. Ordinary with the same freedom that He moves in the spectacular. And quietly unsettling, because it means the encounter might come when you are not particularly ready for it. Lydia was not ready for Paul in the sense of having prepared a speech or arranged a meeting or cleared her schedule for a significant spiritual Experience. She was at the river on a regular Sabbath, and the ordinary became the extraordinary without warning. The Lord opened her heart in a moment she was already present for. This is the gift of consistent practice. Not the dramatic one-time encounter, though those happen too. The gift of having been present week after week at the ordinary place of prayer, so that when the extraordinary arrives, you are already there too. Receive it. The ground has been prepared. The heart is already oriented. The habit of showing up has created the availability for what comes. Lydia's hospitality also deserves more attention than we usually give it. She urged Paul and Silas to come and stay. The Greek word used, parakaleo, implies something persistent, something insistent. She didn't simply offer and accept a polite refusal. She pressed. She made the case for her own home as the right place. She staked something personal on the invitation. If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come. She put her newfound faith on the line. She said, I believe what I just heard, and my believing it means my house should be open to the people who brought it to me. My faith is not a private interior experience. It expresses itself in opening the door. This connection between belief and hospitality is woven throughout the New Testament, but Lydia makes it visible in a particularly direct way. The opening of her heart and the opening of her door are simultaneous. They happen together, and in the togetherness of them, the church begins. The church that began in Lydia's house went on to be one of the most beloved of all the early churches. When Paul was in prison, chained, facing an uncertain future, limited in everything that a free person takes for granted, the church that wrote to him most faithfully, that supported him most generously, that he spoke of with the most unguarded warmth, was the church at Philippi. The church that had started in a businesswoman's house by a river. He called them his joy and his crown. He told them that even in prison he gave thanks for them every time he thought of them. He told them to rejoice. He told them that the peace that passes understanding would guard their hearts and minds. He wrote them the letter that contains some of the most beautiful words in all of Paul's writings. And none of it would have happened without Lydia's open door. She did not know, when she urged Paul and Silas to come in, what the house would become. She did not know that the dinner table would become the altar, and the workroom would become the meeting room, and the house would become the mother of a community that would outlast her by centuries. She just opened the door, and God built a church in it. What are you opening the door to? Not in the sense of throwing caution to the wind. Not in the sense of ignoring wisdom. Abigail is still in the room next door, available for consultation. But in the sense of what has been knocking. What have you been a little too guarded to receive? What grace has been standing at the door of your life, in a form you did not expect. Lydia's Paul arrived looking very ordinary. A traveling tent maker and his companion, seeking a place to speak beside a river on the Sabbath. No advance press. No credentials that would have impressed the social circles Lydia moved in. Just a man with something to say, and a heart that God had prepared to say it in the right way on the right morning. The extraordinary tends to arrive in ordinary packaging. Keep the door open. And there is one more layer of Lydia's story that I think matters for tonight specifically. She was a woman of means and influence who nonetheless needed something she could not provide herself. Her wealth, her network, her business acumen, her established household, none of it could give her what she found by the river that Sabbath morning. She could open doors for people. She could not open her own heart. The Lord opened it. This is the necessary surrender that all the other gifts build toward. The recognition that there is something we cannot do for ourselves, no matter how capable we are. Something that has to be given rather than earned or achieved or organized. Something that the prepared and positioned and open-hearted person receives as a gift, not a project. The open heart is a gift. It is given to those who have been faithfully showing up, faithfully seeking, faithfully present at the ordinary river on the ordinary Sabbath. It is given to you. Receive it. Let the door stay open. Even in sleep, even in the unconsciousness of the deep rest, let the posture be open, ready, willing, available for what you are sending, Lord. Available for the morning's new mercies. Available for the Sabbath morning encounter that may be coming in a form I cannot predict. Open. Lydia's gift is the open door, and she offers it to you tonight with both hands. Take it. Rest in it. Let it be your posture as you sleep. The corridor again. The stone floor. The single lamp. Abigail's room is behind you. The clear air, the table, the particular stillness of a decision already made. Carry it with you. The wisdom that was in her is in you. The next room is different from the others. It is darker for one thing. Not dangerously dark, warmly dark. The kind of dark that feels like an embrace rather than an absence. The kind of dark that a person chooses when they have been in too much light for too long. The kind of dark that holds things carefully. Take a breath before we go in. In and out. Come. Priscilla's story is the longest one in some ways, even though it takes up less space in Scripture than some of the others, because it is the story of an entire life, of decade after decade of faithful work in city after city, of a partnership that held through expulsion and travel and starting over again. Let me tell you more of what we know about her. Her name in the original Greek is Prisca, a diminutive and affectionate form. Paul uses both forms, sometimes Priscilla, sometimes Prisca. The use of both suggests familiarity, a relationship that had deepened over time into the kind of friendship that uses the nickname naturally, without thinking about it. She was not an acquaintance or a contact. She was someone he had lived with, worked beside, broken bread with over many years in many cities. The first we hear of her is in Corinth, where she and Aquila had come after the expulsion from Rome. They were there when Paul arrived, and he found them. The text implies a sense of discovery, of stumbling upon exactly what was needed. They were tent makers. He was a tent maker. They were already doing the work when he arrived, and he fell in alongside them, and they worked together for a year and a half. This working together is worth pausing on. Paul the Apostle, the theologian, the author of letters that would shape Christianity for millennia, spent his days in Corinth making tents with Priscilla and Aquila, not because it was beneath him, not because he was waiting for something more important to do, but because this is how the work worked. The tents paid for the mission. The workshop was the community space. The daily labor was the context in which the teaching happened, naturally, organically, in the way that the most lasting teaching always happens. In the midst of shared work, Priscilla learned from Paul in those 18 months in Corinth. And Paul, I suspect, learned from Priscilla too. Her practical wisdom, her reading of people and situations, her ability to create community in a new city quickly, to open the house and make it a place where people wanted to gather. These are gifts that cannot be taught in a classroom. They are lived into over years of faithful, ordinary practice. Then they went to Ephesus together. And this is where the Apollos encounter happens, which is one of the most remarkable brief scenes in the New Testament. Apollos came to Ephesus. He was, and this is important, already a powerful and compelling teacher. The text says he was mighty in the scriptures, that he had been instructed in the way of the Lord, that he spoke and taught accurately about Jesus, that he was fervent in spirit. He was not a beginner. He was not someone who needed remedial instruction. But there was something he didn't yet have the full picture of. His knowledge of baptism was incomplete. He knew only the baptism of John, not the fuller understanding that had come after Pentecost. And Priscilla and Aquila, when they heard him, took him aside privately. Privately, not publicly. Not in front of the congregation, where the correction would have been humiliating. Not in a letter or a report to someone else. Privately, they brought him into their home, into the workshop probably, the place where conversation happened naturally over the work of the hands. And they explained the way of God more accurately. More accurately, not from scratch, not starting over, building on what he had, adding what was missing, doing it in the context of relationship rather than authority. This is wisdom in action. Not the wisdom of power. I know more than you, therefore I correct you publicly. The wisdom of relationship. We respect what you know and we want to add to it, and we're going to do this in a way that honors you. And the result? Apollos became one of the most significant teachers of the early church. He went on to Achaia with the support of the Ephesian community and greatly helped those who through grace had believed. He publicly refuted the Jews with great vigor, showing from the scriptures that Jesus was the Christ. The teaching that Priscilla gave him in the privacy of the workshop went out with him into the world and shaped communities she never met, people she never knew, generations she would not live to see. This is the multiplication that faithful teaching produces. And this is the particular consolation of the long work. You do not see all of it. You cannot see all of it. The thing you taught the person who taught the person who taught the person is invisible to you from where you stand. The kindness you showed that made someone else capable of kindness is not something you can trace. The faithfulness you modeled that someone was watching and is now modeling themselves, you may never know about it. But it happened. It is happening. The 10 stitches of your faithful ordinary are going out into the world in ways you cannot track. There is also something I want to say about Priscilla as half of a partnership, because this is one of the things her story offers that none of the other women's stories offer in quite the same way. She and Aquila are always together. Every mention of them in the New Testament, all 6 mentions, is of both of them. Their names are always paired. Their work is always shared. Their risk was taken together. Their house was opened together. Their teaching of Apollos was done together. This is a marriage of remarkable mutuality for any time, let alone the 1st century. They are not described in terms of his leadership and her support. They are described as a unit, co-workers, fellow laborers, people who faced the same risks and did the same work and built the same communities. Priscilla does not disappear into Aquila's story. She has her own standing. Paul names her first in some of his references, which was unusual in that culture, and which many scholars read as an indication that she was the more publicly prominent of the two in the ministry context. A woman prominent in ministry. A woman teaching a man of great learning. A woman whose house became a church in Rome and a church in Ephesus. A woman whose name appears in the letters that circulated among the early communities and was recognized by readers throughout the Mediterranean world. This is Priscilla, and she made tents. The ordinary work and the extraordinary impact were not separate things in her life. They were one thing. The same hands that wove leather and thread opened the door and taught Apollos and welcomed Paul and sheltered a church. Your ordinary work and whatever extraordinary impact it might have are not separate things either. They are one thing. The same hands, the same faithfulness, the same God working in both. Rest in that tonight. Let the long work be its own completion. Let the tents be enough because they are. Let the faithful ordinary be what it is, holy ground. Not because it sparkles, not because it is impressive, but because it is the place where God meets his people and does his work through their willing hands. Your hands, your ordinary faithful tents, they matter. Rest now, tent maker. You have done enough for today. Section 13. The gathering, all 5 rooms, all 5 gifts. Let me stay a little longer in the space between the rooms, because I think there is something here that the rooms individually cannot contain. Something that only becomes visible when you hold all 5 stories at once, when you let the 5 women be in the same space at the same time and see what they say to each other and what they say together to you. Miriam and Abigail would have recognized each other. Both of them had the quality of acting in the moment, of stepping into the gap before they had fully calculated the risk. Miriam stepping out from the reeds to speak to the princess. Abigail riding out to meet the army. Different centuries, different worlds, different stakes, but the same fundamental quality, the willingness to move before the fear had been fully resolved, to act in the trembling rather than waiting for the steadiness that might never come. And Mary Magdalene would have known something about what both of them felt, because the early morning visit to the tomb was its own kind of stepping into the gap, going to a place where the executed man's followers were not supposed to be, going before the sun had fully risen, before the city was awake, before there was any protection from the exposure of being there. She went anyway. She went in the dark, and the dark was exactly where the morning found her. Lydia would have welcomed all of them. This is the thing about Lydia. The open door in her case was not a selective thing. It was not open to some and closed to others, open in good seasons and closed in bad ones. The door was simply open. Come in. Whoever you are, whatever you are carrying, whatever your story, come in. The house is big enough. There is room at the table. The lamp is lit. And Priscilla would have made tea, or whatever the ancient equivalent was, and sat down with all of them and asked, "Tell me about the work. What are you building? What are you making? What are the tents of your life? The ordinary things that look like nothing, but that are actually holding something much larger together." 5 women in a room together, and the room would be extraordinary. Because the gifts they carry are not individual possessions. They are not things that stay locked in one person or one story. Gifts, in the way the Bible talks about them, travel. They are meant to be given and received and passed on and given again. The song that Miriam sang on the shore traveled through 40 years of wilderness and through 3,000 years of Jewish and Christian liturgy and worship. The wisdom that Abigail displayed in the moment of crisis became a story told to people who needed to hear it for generations. The first resurrection witness that Mary Magdalene carried went out from the garden immediately. She ran, the text says. She ran to tell, and it has been running ever since. Lydia's open door became a church, that became a letter, that became a text that people have been reading and finding comfort in for 2,000 years. Priscilla's teaching of Apollos shaped communities she would never see. These are not small things that stayed small. These are small beginnings that became large things. Ordinary acts of faithfulness that became extraordinary things, not because the people who performed them were extraordinary, but because the God who was in them is extraordinary, and his faithfulness is not subject to the same limitations that ours is. He takes the ordinary and multiplies it. He takes the tambourine carried through the wilderness and makes it the music of freedom. He takes the woman on the donkey and makes her the one who stopped a massacre. He takes the one weeping at the empty tomb and makes her the first witness to the resurrection. He takes the open heart and makes it the foundation of a church. He takes the 10 stitches and makes them the shelter of communities across the Roman Empire. This is who he is. And he is the same God tonight. In this room, in your life, in the ordinary faithful things you are doing that look from the inside like nothing very remarkable. In the going back to the river faithfulness. In the staying when staying is hard faithfulness. In the making tents in the new city faithfulness. He is in it. He is multiplying it. You cannot see the multiplication from inside the making, but it is happening. The 5 gifts you have been given tonight are evidence of the multiplication. Each woman doing the thing that was hers to do produced something that traveled across time and arrived in this room tonight. In you, in this. Dark in the rest that is settling over you. You are the multiplication. You are the place where Miriam's song has arrived, where Abigail's wisdom has landed, where Mary's good news has been received, where Lydia's welcome has done its work, where Priscilla's faithful ordinary has found its next recipient. And from you, from this night, from the rest you receive here, from the gifts you carry into the morning, the multiplication will continue in ways you will not be able to see or trace or claim credit for. In the people you will encounter, and the things you will say, and the ordinary faithful acts of your ordinary faithful life that will travel the way all. These women's stories have traveled into places and times you cannot imagine. The multiplication is in motion. You are part of it. Rest in that tonight. Let it be enough. It is enough. It is more than enough. Let me go a little deeper into each of these 5 truths, because the anxiety does not respond well to the general. It responds to the specific. It needs to hear not just God is faithful. It needs to hear how and where and in what specific form and with what kind of attention to the particular thing that is weighing on you tonight. So let's get specific. If what is keeping you awake is the sense that you are stuck, that you have been in the same place for a long time, that the wilderness is long and the destination is not visible, and the waiting has gone on past what you thought you could bear, then Miriam speaks directly to this. She was in the wilderness for 40 years. Not a typo. 40 years. The full working life of a person, from young adulthood to old age, spent in a place that was supposed to be a passage and became a home. The generation that left Egypt did not reach the promised land. Miriam died in the wilderness. She never arrived. And yet, the song she sang on the shore, the song of the God who is highly exalted, who hurls the horse and rider into the sea, that song traveled through the wilderness with her and arrived in the promised land with the generation that came after. Her faithfulness shaped the people who reached what she did not reach. Her keeping of the song through the long years meant that the song was alive when it was needed. Sometimes the wilderness is not a passage. Sometimes it is the whole assignment. And the assignment in the wilderness is keep the song alive. Keep the expectation of God's faithfulness alive. Keep the tambourine, which is the instrument of joy, in your hands, not because the joy is present in full right now, but because you believe it will be. Because you have seen enough of what God does to believe that He is not done doing it. The stuck place is not the final destination. Even if you never leave it in the way you were hoping to leave it, even if the wilderness is longer than expected, the song you keep there travels. It shapes people you don't know you're shaping. It matters in ways you cannot see from inside the wilderness. Keep the tambourine. And if what is keeping you awake is the sense that you have made the wrong choice, that somewhere along the way you turned when you should, have gone straight, chose when you should have waited, acted when you should have held back, or held back when you should have acted then. Abigail speaks to this. She lived with the wrong choice. Nabal was, presumably, her family's choice. Marriages in that culture were arranged by the family, and she had not been asked. She was given, and the giving had gone to a man who was harsh and badly behaved, and who would, eventually, hear the news of his near death, and his heart would become stone, and he would die 10 days later. She did not choose Nabal, and yet she showed up fully in the life she had, not the life she might have preferred. She did not disappear into bitterness or into the management of a permanent grievance. She brought her full self, her wisdom, her courage, her clarity, into the situation that was actually hers. And in that bringing, She changed the situation. Not perfectly, not completely, but significantly. You can bring your full self to the situation that is actually yours. Not the ideal situation. The actual one. The one with the navel in it. The one with the difficulty baked in. The one you did not choose or would choose differently if you could. Your full self, your wisdom, your courage, your God-given ability to act from your best self in your worst circumstances is available in that situation. It has not been voided by the imperfection of the situation. You have not been disqualified. Show up fully. And if what is keeping you awake is the weight of something you have been through, the thing that happened, the darkness that was real, the wound that has not fully healed, the thing that you would never have chosen but that is now part of you whether you chose it or not, then Mary. Magdalene speaks to this. She had 7 demons cast out. Whatever that means in the specific, whatever those 7 things were, they were real and they were in her, and they had been in her, and then they were not. And she carried the after effects of that into the rest of her life. Not as a handicap, as a depth, as a knowing that people who have not been through the dark do not have. Your having been through the dark is not a deficit. It is a depth. It is the thing that allows you to stand at the cross when others flee, to stay at the tomb when others go home, to be present to the impossible grief because you have learned somewhere in your own story that you can survive the impossible, that the morning comes, that he speaks names into the weeping. Your wound is not the end of your story. It is the source of a particular depth that only the wounded have. And he speaks your name into it. Listen. And if what is keeping you awake is the longing, the open-hearted, vulnerable longing for something more, something deeper, something that the life you are currently living has not yet given you, then Lydia speaks to this. She was already there before Paul arrived, already seeking, already showing up to the river. And the Lord, at the exact right moment, in the exact right form, through the exact right words, opened her heart. The longing is not evidence of something missing in you. It is evidence of the seeking, of the Sabbath faithfulness, of the showing up to the river when you don't know why you keep going back, only that something in you insists on it. Keep going back. The Lord is faithful to open the hearts that have been faithfully presenting themselves. And if what is keeping you awake is the exhaustion, the deep, bone level, I have been doing this for so long exhaustion that makes the simplest thing feel heavy, then Priscilla speaks to this. She was expelled from Rome. She started over in Corinth. She did the work. She opened the house. She taught Apollos. She moved to Ephesus. She did the work again. She opened the house again. She moved back to Rome. She did the work again. She did not do this because she was not tired. She did this because the work was hers, and the God was faithful, and the tents were needed, and the door was meant to be open. And she rested. The tent maker who works well also rests well. The person who gives fully in the day has the right to receive fully in the night. The rest is not the reward for the work. It is the partner of the work. It is what makes the work sustainable. It is what keeps the hands ready for the next city, the next workshop, the next Apollos who comes to Ephesus needing something that only you have. To give. Rest is part of the work. Tonight's rest is part of your work. Receive it fully. You have earned it, not in the theological sense where you earn things from God, but in the human sense where a body that has worked deserves. To rest, and a spirit that has stayed faithful deserves the Sabbath of the night. You deserve this rest. Receive it.